Shot, huh? That'll do it every time.
Hello, and welcome back to Ycft. Happy Valentine's week.
Valentine's.
If all goes to plan, this will be coming out 2 days after Valentine's Day. So yeah, we are looking at Ghost, the film that makes most people cry. Not me, but it makes a lot of people cry. It makes you cry.
Every fucking
A
time.
lot.
For different reasons. Lots of different reasons. This is a film... So, okay, before we dive into it, I've seen this film lots of times. Goes back to when I was little. It was one of my dad's favourite movies. It was my dad that introduced it to me. Softy that he was. I introduced this to you.
Last year.
Yeah,
so I've only watched it twice.
Yeah. But you are a fan of this.
I did enjoy it. What was the director called?
Director is Jerry Zucker. So Jerry Zucker, this was his very first just dramatic, serious film. He was most well known for being the team behind films like Airplane and The Naked Gun. So his first foray into, serious subject matter, I guess. And
Yeah.
what a film.
Released in 1990, and it did pretty well, didn't it?
It did. It was written by a guy called Bruce Joel Rubin, and he actually won the Oscar for Best Screenplay. It was one of 2 Oscars that this film received. Yes, this film did pretty well on release. Do you want me to talk about it?
Yeah, go for it.
Alright, so it was made for a budget between 22 and 23 million, and it grossed over 500 million.
So it did pretty well.
It did pretty good.
Swayze, Demi Moore, Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg actually won an Oscar for this, didn't she?
She did Best Supporting Actress.
Yeah, and Patrick Swayze was one that pushed for her to be cast. They originally wanted Tina Turner.
They did initially want Tina Turner.
Yeah, so she thanked Patrick in his acceptance speech. And we actually debated something when watching this one, because you don't think Patrick Swayze is that sexy of a man, do you?
I don't think Patrick Swayze is
I do. I think Patrick Swayze was a very sexy man back in the day.
Look, I see it. I understand it when people say, like, oh my god, Patrick Swayze, when people swoon. Like, I get it. It's just, I don't know.
Is that just because of the films that he's in? Between this and Dirty Dancing?
This Dirty Dancing, like, he was in a film called Roadhouse, which...
I love Roadhouse.
That was also one of my dad's favourite films. I think my dad was a fan of Swayze. I don't know, like, I think he's a really good actor, and this is by far my favourite film that he's ever done.
No one rocks the tight jeans and baggy tucked-in shirt better than Patrick Swayze.
Quite like
that
Patrick
is the Swayze. Yeah.
Quite like Patrick Swayze.
And,
yeah.
Right, we're not going to pretend that people don't know the plot of this film. It's in the title.
It
So it's like
but
what is his actual job in this? It's to do with like...
Well, he works at a bank.
Yeah, he works with people's investments
with his
and
friend
stuff like that.
called Carl. And he's madly in love. Patrick Swayze's character Sam Wheat is madly in love with Demi Moore, who is some kind of artist. Like, she's a sculptor. I don't know, like they recently are renovating this, massive loft in New York.
I think it's above the one they actually live in.
Yeah, fucking huge, and like, everything's really idyllic in their relationship. They're so in love with each other. They've got this great best mate. Like they're moving into this big loft.
And he fucking dies.
He gets murked.
Sorry, I had to jump in.
He gets murked pretty quick in the film.
I mean, everyone knows like he's the ghost, so he has to die at some point through the movie. I need to give this film props for the scene where he does get killed.
Sure.
It's after a date night. There's a mugging going on, and the camera kind of like pulls away from them, like when he's wrestling with the gun to just look down the street. You hear the gunshot. You see the killer, the gunman run off.
Stop it!
And then you see Patrick Swayze run off after him as well. When I first watched it, I was like, oh, maybe this isn't the moment that he dies. And that's when he looks back and he realises that he's a ghost at this point. He died in that moment. And it's so effective.
It really is.
That's it with the title, and if you'd seen the trailer, he has to die in this film.
I will never forget the look on your face when you first watched this. Your jaw, I don't know if you remember this, but your jaw was literally like agape when you saw it. It was like...
Just got shocked. I was like, wait,
what?
And
then you were like, oh. I was like, that's what I wanted. I think it's definitely not the most famous scene in Ghost. We will talk about the most famous scene in Ghost. But I think it's really underrated because it's filmed, I don't know, it's really cleverly.
Yeah.
And yeah, when he comes back, and then there's possibly a moment where you think, oh shit, has Molly, Demi Moore, is she the one that's been shot? And then you see her just cradling Sam's bleeding body on, you know, like this dingy little like alley in New York.
And
and the
typical,
look on his face.
the heavens open. He walk because she keeps saying that, you know, don't leave, don't go,
Please
don't go.
leave me,
So
don't
he
leave
doesn't.
me. He gets his chance.
He gets his chance and he doesn't go.
And he doesn't go. I think at this point though, he is so confused and so like shocked, like in a state of shock just by what's happened. And yeah, like Swayze, to his credit, I think he sells like that devastation really, really, really well. Yeah, it's very kind of like, I don't know how to word it. The afterlife in this film, and like the you know what happens after, you know, purgatory when you're not a ghost anymore, is very kind of rooted in like traditional Christian mythology or like religion, I guess. You know, like there's a heaven and there's clearly a hell in this film, like very kind of traditional depictions of that. So he gets his chance to go and he doesn't go.
Yeah, it becomes obvious to him that I love the scene like when he's just sat in the hospital like with his own body. There's another ghost. It's like but he doesn't realize there's a ghost at first. And he's like, oh, I'm waiting for
my wife.
Waiting for my wife. And you
She's
see another guy who's like dying. So, oh, he's not going to make it. I've seen this.
Yeah,
loads
seen it
times.
loads
It's
of times.
He's like, don't worry about doors.
Yeah, well, also when there's a guy that they're resuscitating, and he ends up, you know, going off into heaven. Spirit is just sucked out of his body, like very
just make me
elegantly
think of
sucked
like
away.
you know, if anyone's seen BBC Ghost, they're all getting sucked off.
Oh, he got sucked off. He does. This guy gets.
If anyone
sucked
hasn't
off.
watched Ghosts, that is
Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. And then this, you know, this elderly spirit kind of whispers to Swayze something like, "Oh, you know, he was lucky. Sometimes it's the other ones."
Yeah.
So our first sort of
hint that there is a hell if there has
that
to be
there
a
is
heaven.
a hell. If yes, exactly. You know, something is forever defined by its opposite. And that's like the first little glimpse that we get. But for the first, like, I don't know, like maybe half an hour of the film, 20 minutes, whatever, it's Swayze just trying to adjust to being dead.
Yeah.
Like,
and when
he
he realizes that,
goes to his own funeral.
yeah, and he realizes that he was murdered.
He was set up. It was a setup. It was not just a random mugging. Willie Lopez, the guy that killed Swayze, he was hired by someone to do the whacking, essentially. And so Sam is he's hanging around Molly. He's just sticking around in their apartment, just kind of watching his love go through the process of grief, whilst also trying to piece together his own murder, trying to solve his own murder.
That's how he ends up coming across when he realizes what's gone on. Because are we going to spoil who the killer is?
Yes, I think we need to just spoil the
It's
shit
his
out
best
of this
mate.
film. It's Carl.
And it's all for money.
Yes,
Because
Carl's
he'd
been a naughty
realised
boy.
he was looking through some accounts, and Sam realizes there's more money in some accounts than what should be.
Yeah.
So dirty dealings going on. So he tracks down Whoopi Goldberg's character. What's Oda Mae Brown?
Oda Mae Brown.
A psychic.
A fraud.
A fraud, but she can actually hear him.
Yes. So Oda Mae Brown has this.
She's
like
so much fun in this movie.
is running this business with her sisters where she is pretending to be a psychic, and she's conning people for money just to pretend like she's in contact with their dead loved ones. And Sam goes into one of these psychic readings, and for the first time she can hear Sam, like she can hear a genuine spirit. So he hones in on Whoopi Goldberg, basically harasses her to the point where she agrees she'll help him. Convinces her to go see Demi Moore, tells her, like all these secret things that only Demi Moore would know to try and convince her. Demi's still a little bit, unsure. She doesn't believe in the afterlife. But the comic relief that Whoopi brings is like, it's
perfect. I think
so good.
What is unique about her characters, because usually when you have like a medium, they can see a ghost, but she can only hear them.
She can only hear him. She doesn't know what he looks like.
And I like that approach.
Is this you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, cute. White, but cute.
And let's be fair, like this is very much a horror or not. It's horror adjacent, but a lot of because we have hell and demons, which we'll get to a bit later. So we have death, we have the supernatural, we have possession, we have poltergeisting. You list off all those things.
Yeah.
That is part of that's the horror genre.
Absolutely.
So this is like I'd say it's more of a mainstream, very accessible horror movie.
It is.
To the point where even Roger Ebert liked it up until the point where
it gets a bit too...
It dipped its toes too much into the genre, and then he just didn't like. And he also didn't believe that she thought it took her too long to believe in the supernatural.
Yeah, he thought Demi Moore took her time in, finally coming around. I also think it works as a horror on a more sort of like existential level as well.
What he is going through is terrifying.
Can you imagine? Like, just imagine being murdered, when you're still very young, so much life ahead of you, then being stuck watching your loved ones grieve for you, not being able to interact with them, not knowing if you'll ever get another chance to, go to heaven. Like, that idea is terrifying.
Yeah, realising it was your best friend.
And then realising it was your best friend. I also really like the beginning of the film before he dies, where there's a sweet scene where him and Molly are in bed together, and he's feeling... he's feeling like a little bit low, and she's trying to coax it out of him. Like, what's up? Like, are you having second thoughts about us? Or, moving in together? And he's like, no, it's just, everything's going really well at the minute, and I don't want the bubble to burst. Which is also, is quite sad. And then on the TV, they see the news of a plane crash. And even Sam says, like, oh, man, just like that, blackout. He's like, can you imagine? A little bit of foreshadowing there.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what happens to him. He didn't even get a chance. Like, one bullet and he's gone.
I also think...
That is scary.
One of the most famous scenes in this movie is massively misremembered.
Okay.
This was my shock and watching. Everyone knows the scene from Ghosts, the pottery scene. Through other mediums and parodies, I honestly assume, and I think a lot of people assume if you haven't seen the movie, that he's a ghost at this point when doing this. He's not. That's at the very beginning of the movie. He's alive.
Yeah.
I get why, because a lot of the effects in this are quite dated. The film is 30 odd years old.
I think they still work.
Some of them, they still work. I think it's just now you can kind of see the seams a little bit. But what they're actually doing, it's ILM. It's ingenious what they did. But I think at the time, technically, I don't think they could have done what I thought the scene was going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the most misremembered scenes in cinema. It's like but it's also been one of the most parodied scenes. Like one of my favourites was in Community. Like they did it
in Community.
Yeah, Pottery 101. I think the episode was called.
Yeah.
Family Guy have done it.
Family Guy skissed it. I'm pretty sure Saturday Night Live probably skisses it. There's a brilliant parody in Sin City. Michael J. Fox parodies the scene at one point. And then one that had me howling recently is, anyone heard of Owl Kitty? The guy that puts his cat in like famous scenes in films, and they put the cat on like the pottery thing, so the cat is just spinning around and around. Oh my god, please check it out.
Snoop Dogg do what?
My god, Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart did the pottery scene. Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart, like best mates apparently, have a cooking program, and they did a parody of the pottery bit.
Very, very, very well known scene. Probably, would you say it's like one of the most famous scenes in cinema?
I would definitely
It's
say
actually
that.
very simple.
It's very simple. I did learn that I think a sex scene was actually filmed at when they would, after that scene. Like, we were meant to see an actual lovemaking scene. But when they were watching the dailies, I think it was probably director Zucker just thought, the scene is so sensual all on its own.
Don't need it.
We don't need to see the sex. Like, we know full well what's happening here. And of course, famously as well, it plays to Unchained Melody by the Righteous Brothers, which we get the 1965 version. It's actually, is it 1965? It's a 1955 song. And yeah, in this we hear the 65 version by the Righteous Brothers, which kind of became the unofficial theme to the whole film.
You think of Ghost when you hear that song.
Yeah, we will hear it later in another really beautiful scene.
Yeah.
As well, but yeah, very famous moment in the movie.
Walking through doors is a pretty terrifying thing for me. You want to describe how the director described what he wanted to get the VFX artist to understand how he wanted to do it? Because when he goes through the door, it's almost like the colour. You see it from his point of view, like he sees like the door like broken down into atoms almost.
Yeah.
But when he interacts with things, like the colour from the door kind of seeps into him.
Before
he goes through it.
Yeah,
they become one.
Yeah, he absorbs like the material of whatever it is that he's going through. Yeah, he's a ghost. He can sit down and he can walk on, the ground, but he can't like physically open a door. So he has to go through walls, he has to go through doors. And initially he's a bit intimidated by this. And when Frank Oz was trying to describe how he
Frank
wants...
Oz.
What's he called?
Zucker.
Oh, Jesus
We
Christ.
just
yeah, I was
recorded
just
Little
thinking-
Shop of Horrors.
Little
so-
Shop of Horrors, sorry, yeah. Jerry Zucker. When Jerry Zucker was trying to describe the effect, how it wanted to look, he couldn't articulate it in a way that the special effects guys, the VFX guys, could understand. So I think they were out for coffee or something. They were out for lunch, and Zucker was getting a bit exasperated, trying to say what he wanted it to look like. So in the end, he got a napkin, dipped it in a cup of coffee. Of course, the napkin absorbed the coffee as it does, and it kind of spilled over the napkin, and he was like, this basically, like this. It was the only way you could do it, and from that moment on, I think the VFX guys were like, got you.
Yeah.
Got you.
I love it when he's trying to like learn how to use his new ghostly abilities.
Yeah,
'Cause
he's
he meets
a ghost in practice.
He meets basically a poltergeist on the subway when he's following his killer. And this is one of the things, like, again, a very sad story, but it's also like more in the genre.
Right, so you want to question whether Ghost is a horror film. I think I first watched this movie when I was about 6 or 7. This scene scared the shit out of me. And I watched it on YouTube, just this scene alone. And similarly to like The Woman in Black, it was just littered with comments saying, this guy ruined my childhood. This fucking scene right here. Like, oh my god, I remember watching this back in 1990. This scene blew my mind. This scene sticks with people for lots of different reasons. But yeah, he jumps on the subway. He's chasing after... It's Willie, isn't it, this scene?
Yeah.
He's trying to chase after his killer. And he encounters a ghost, a poltergeist, on the subway, who is played by a brilliant character actor called Vincent Schiavelli. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. He's popped up in like lots of stuff in the 90s. Also tragically died at the same age of Patrick Swayze when he was like 57, I think, something like that. Similar cause of death as well, cancer, I think. And the guy immediately goes to attack Swayze. Get off my train. Like, this is my train. Get off. Breaking windows and pushing Swayze to the ground. Like, throwing people's
The Gracie way
newspapers
puts
out
him
of their
through
hands.
the wall, and like, Swayze, I think he keeps forgetting that he's eggs, so another train's coming like while he's leaning out. He's
Yeah.
like terrified. He's like, well, it can't hit you.
He's not going to hurt you, but it hasn't still like sunk in yet, I think.
Mm.
And yeah, Swayze's just kind of, he gets off the subway. He's totally kind of thrown by this whole encounter. But we do see this character again.
Yeah, he goes back because he wants to learn. He wants to do what he does. He wants to be able to move things.
Yeah, he wants to be able to push things. He wants to have a little bit more power. So he goes back to the subway. He finds the poltergeist again, whose name we never learn, by the way. And again, like, poltergeist is very hostile to Swayze, but he stands his ground and he says, no, you're going to help me. You're going to teach me how you are able to do that. So there's almost like a sweet scene where we end up on one of like the abandoned platforms of the subway, and the poltergeist is teaching Swayze how to do it. Like telling him, you still think that you're alive. You're trying to move things with your body.
Okay. Don't laugh.
But you're not alive. You've got to move things with your mind, like focus your anger and focus all your attention. And Swayze's able to do it.
Yeah, and it takes him a while. But like, one little detail is later on when he tries to move a penny to prove to Demi Moore that he's there, he can't pick it up. He has to push it up the door and bounce it because he doesn't have fingers. He's just a force.
Yeah,
at this point.
Literally, yeah. And so once Swayze's kind of mastered it, he turns to the man, poltergeist, and he says, so, what's your story? Like, what happened to you? And the guy just immediately sort of turns, doesn't he? Like, personality turns on a dime. And he's like, since they pushed me. Because I think Swayze asks, how long have you been here? And the reply is, since they pushed me.
And he assumes that, like, what I can imagine is that maybe he also went to his own funeral and people assumed that he killed himself.
Maybe. I mean, it's one of like the great mysteries of the whole film. This guy is so ambiguous. And I think it's also kind of inferred that the poor man, yeah, he is a tortured soul, but he might also just not be fully, like, mentally there, potentially.
But also depends how long he's been there for, because usually, like, in a lot of media, the longer a ghost has been like around, the more they kind of deteriorate and forget who they are.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he looks like, he's not wearing clothes out of time. He's wearing all black, like a black coat, black sweater, black jeans or whatever. So he doesn't look, particularly. I don't think he's been dead that long. But he starts getting really irate, and it's like, it wasn't my time. I wasn't supposed to go. I'm not supposed to be here. Like, clearly, he's angry. He's angry that he's dead. He didn't want to die.
I think Swayze also sees what he can become if he doesn't keep himself in check.
When you said that, I was like, yeah, like 100%.
Because the scene that follows when he does, because Willie goes after Odame. We're not spoil too much of that point of the film. Because again, we talk forever about all the different aspects. The plot is actually like,
the characters start to put two and two together as to what's
the plot
going
is
on.
actually like, it's really good, and it's quite.
There's a mystery.
There's a mystery to it. What the bad guy is actually trying to do is actually quite complex, and the plan to get back at him is also quite complex.
Yes.
And there's a lot of steps, but when Willie goes after, Willie and what's the bad guy called? I keep forgetting his name. Carl. Go after Odame. Sam confronts him. Sam confronts Willie, and there's a great scene where he's slamming doors around him.
Yeah.
And he writes, I really want to know how they did this, when he turns on the hot water and then writes boo in the mirror.
Yeah.
And obviously Willie can't see it. He's terrified. He's absolutely terrified.
Oh, yeah, he's being haunted at that. Like, Sam in that moment becomes a poltergeist.
And and he's chasing through the streets and he's pushing him. But we never actually physically see Sam push him. We see the camera looking towards Sam's face and him doing the motion. Then it'll cut to Willie's face. He's been pushed back. So it's kind of like we're seeing it from almost like Willie's perspective. He's just getting pushed by this unknown force. So we never actually physically see the two characters interact with each other. And this leads to spoilers again. Willie is then run over. Sam does actually lead to Willie's death.
Yeah.
And we see the other guys. And they're shadows that come to life and grab the spirit and drag them away. Not even down, they drag them away into the shadows.
Yeah.
And the noise they make, I think they said they played babies' cries backwards and messed with the speeds, and it's so. That's the bit that Roger Ebert then didn't like, that dipped too much into the horror genre. It was like, well, there's a heaven, there has to be a hell.
There has to be a hell. I think
And it's really creepy.
Oh my god, is it? It really, really is. It's like, it's one of the most outright scary moments in the film. And again, watching this as a kid, that shit'll stay with you. Like, trust me, those shadow people always stayed with me. And even watching it now, it's not so much how they look, but it's the sound design, it's the sound effects of the baby crying. I think, isn't it played in reverse or something, and slowed down to a really, really slow speed, and it's horrible. But also what sells it too is the desperation of Willie. He
has a brief moment to come to terms with that he is dead, and then suddenly he's being dragged away.
He doesn't have long to realise it, and then they kind of claw at him and scratch him, and then they drag him away, and then you can hear Willie screaming, "Help me!" Just the anguish of the guy being literally dragged to hell. Tell me that doesn't belong in a horror film.
That's basically dragged me to hell.
It literally is.
Dead, Willie.
It's a scene that really does stay with you. The shadow people.
Yes, it's very much adjacent to the genre, and it belongs in horror.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, so we see them again.
We do
later.
See them late. Yeah, we see them much later on.
Great possession, because kind of like in The Sixth Sense, when as soon as he starts helping ghosts, he becomes almost a beacon for them. As soon as Odame starts talking to Sam, she's then a beacon for lots of real ghosts, and it's quite overwhelming for her.
Yeah.
But she discovers that ghosts can possess her.
Yes.
And she allows Sam to possess her so he can have a dance.
Yes.
With Demi Moore. They can have a moment. They can have a moment together. And I think a great choice was then to film it with Swayze being there instead of Whoopi. I think it would have worked both ways. There's a height difference there, because she's got her eyes closed. Yeah. Obviously, because it's Whoopi Goldberg's character stood in front of her. And that's when the song plays. You just broke down in tears at this point, didn't you?
This is the bit that always gets me. From this point on in the film, I'm a goner. It's just... I'm just waiting for the end of the film at this point, honestly. Yeah, so at this stage in the film, Whoopi Goldberg has successfully convinced Molly, Demi Moore's character, that Sam is communicating with her. And yeah, she allows Sam to possess her body. And again, really uncomplicated camera work here. Molly closes her eyes, she holds out her hands, and then the next thing we know, we see Swayze's face come into view. And the look on Swayze's face when he's like, it's so pained. Like, you just know he's...
Do you want to cry?
I actually kind of do, just even thinking about it, because this is where we hear Unchained Melody again. Is that the name of the song? Yeah, Unchained Melody. And we hear it again, and we kind of hear most of the song in its entirety at this point, and it's, oh my god, it's such a beautiful song. And it's such a simple scene, too. It's just, this dead man dancing with the love of his life, like the last chance he'll probably ever get to do this. And then suddenly, like, the spell is broken because there's a knock on the door. Carl is trying to, he's trying to burst in. And yeah, it's broken. But
Yeah.
it's such a beautiful scene. I think what gets me is how simple it is.
Yeah.
There's no dialogue in it. We just hear the song play out as they kind of slowly dance together. And, oh, man.
Yeah.
Carl. Fucking Carl.
He leads to... I like his unassuming bad guy name.
Sam, yeah. What's he called? The guy is what, Sam Goldwyn? I think his name is Sam Goldwyn. I don't know. Well, it might not be Sam, but he's one of the Goldwyn, like a descendant of the Metro Goldwyn Mayer family. So he's turned up in a lot of stuff. Didn't he voice Tarzan as well?
Did he?
I think so.
I'll double check.
We'll double check that. I'm pretty sure he did. But yeah, he really sells it. I like, basically, again, yeah, not to delve too much into the subplot, but Carl got involved with drug dealers, and he's been laundering money from the bank. And the reason that he killed Sam is because Sam has kept a little address book with all like the banking passwords in. So he stole Sam to get possession of this little book, basically. He killed his best friend in just total desperation. And increasingly throughout the film, like, Carl, once he realizes that, oh shit, like, Sam is actually communicating with this psychic, and like, shit, I need to figure out a way to, convince Molly that it's not real and whatnot. Like the sweats that he breaks out in, and like the panic sets in. I just think he sells it really well.
The final confrontation is it's a great chase as well, especially because he can't. There's no miraculous way that he can suddenly see Sam. He cannot see.
No, he can't see him. He's fighting a ghost. And it's, oh god, like, again, he's not averse either, Carl, to killing Molly. Like, he will happily kill, not happily, but like, he's willing to do it if that's what it'll take. And yeah, it is really intense. He threatens Whoopi Goldberg, and this is when like Sam really kind of comes into play. Ultimately, Carl is killed. He's like, he ends, like, does Sam push him or something? Or like, Sam manipulates a hook and it crashes into Carl.
Carl throws the hook. He's just in desperation, and it swings backwards. Essentially, he through his own fear, he basically accidentally kills himself.
He falls back into a window that shatters, and it impales Carl. And
that's what Carl then gets. Obviously, the realization he's dead, but also sees Sam again.
See, I wanted to just mention this briefly. The moment where Carl actually dies, and he sees Sam for the first time in ages. There's a look on his face, like he's genuinely happy to see him.
Sam. Oh, Carl.
Like, I don't know if that was just me, the way... but I interpreted the actor, like, looking at Sam like, Sam? Like, he's actually quite happy to see him. Like, the anguish and the torment is over in that moment. He's just seeing his friend. Like, maybe it's just disbelief, like he's actually seeing him.
Could be a little bit. Maybe he's almost relieved that, like, death is the easiest way out of this situation that he's in.
Maybe. But then, our
the
mates come again.
demons come.
The demons, your boy.
Yeah.
And they drag Carl, there's a one-way road for him.
Oh, yeah.
Very toasty destination where he's going.
Yeah.
And then we get to the very end of the film where Molly can finally see and hear Sam. She's able to see and hear him. Basically, again, it plays on this notion that Sam has done what he needed to do. Like there's this idea in death. I think, like, especially like Western ideals of death, and that
if you have unfinished business.
If you have unfinished business, then you're stuck. But he's completed what he needed to do. Like his Both his murderers are dead. He's had a little dance with his love. So now it's a second chance to move on. And she can hear him, she can see him. And fuck me.
Probably the most expensive shot is they have a kiss when he's a ghost, and I guarantee that was the most expensive shot of the film.
Probably. It's so beautiful, and we haven't talked about her a lot here, but Demi Moore.
So she can cry on demand, and that she uses it.
I think it's one of the reasons she was cast. Because in the 80s she was known to be like part of the Brat Pack crew and a lot of like unsuccessful films. She's really underrated in Ghost. I think Whoopi Goldberg is like, of the female characters,
She kind of steals the show a bit.
But at the same time, like, they are like two total ends of the spectrum in terms of characterization. Like, Whoopi is like a very loud, very extrovert, funny character, but you've got Molly, who I think Demi Moore just gives this really like kind of very realistic portrayal of what grief is. Like, I totally buy that this is a woman just lost. Like, she's just floating through that apartment. Like, she doesn't know what day it is. She's just so grief stricken. And I think, she sells it really well. Like, there's a groundedness to it. And like in comparison to Whoopi, obviously she's a bit overshadowed, but I think it's a really, really good performance. And when she is reunited with Sam, and like she's just looking, she can't even really say, I think, what she probably really wants to say, because just like the wonder in her face. And when he says goodbye to her, for the last time.
He ad-libbed a line, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. It's like, it's amazing, the feeling inside, the love that you feel, you take it with you. It's something like that. But Swayze apparently improvised that in the moment. And then he just says, see ya. I'll see you. And he goes off. And that is that.
Not a particularly scary film. Obviously some like definitely scarier scenes.
Watch this when you're 6 years old. I beg to differ. It
is a great film for Valentine's Day. If you're not a fan of like a rom-com, it's just a great little film. I say a little film. Obviously, this film was massive. Visually, very interesting. They've done some incredible things for the time. Great performances, and I think it works so nicely along other supernatural haunting films. We're doing something a little bit at the time, especially a little bit different.
And like, it is a weepy romantic film. Like, you can't deny that it is. But at the same time, just bearing in mind again who the director is. Like, this director came from a comedic background, and the comedy that is in this film is, it's brilliant. I mean, we didn't even talk about it, but there's a whole sequence in the bank with Whoopi Goldberg and Patrick Swayze, and that is just that I've seen this film
hilarious.
So
it's
many
so
times,
funny.
and that will never not be funny to me.
Yeah,
never not be funny. Like, it's also labeled as a fantasy. This film, like a romantic fantasy, which might also help. It's some of it's a little bit dated, like Carl and Sam at the beginning. Like, there's still elements of that Wall Street like yuppie charm that they
obviously,
have. Which
the tech alone dates the film.
Like the interior of Molly and Sam's loft.
I mean, like, even their office. You look at the computers and stuff like that.
Oh god, yeah, like the massive phones that they've got.
Yeah.
It's a little bit dated, but as a story,
the story's timeless. The story just works. It always will, and I think it probably is like. Even I wouldn't put it as my favourite Swayze film. I do think it's the best performance he gives.
I think that it is mine.
Roadhouse is mine.
Roadhouse is not being remade with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Apparently, I think that's been in production for a little while.
Yeah.
Again, it's like, I don't know if it would work.
Yeah.
There's a cheesiness and a campiness to Roadhouse that just
works. I think as well, rightly or wrongly, for fans of Swayze, there's a bit of sweetness when you watch the film, because obviously Patrick died 2009.
Yeah.
2009. So it's
very young.
Can't help but watch this film and also see the irony that the lead actor that plays a dead man is now in fact
not with us
anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a beautiful film. It works on lots of different levels. It's absolutely worth a watch for sure. Also, interesting fact. You mentioned Whoopi Goldberg won Academy Award. I think I'm right in saying she won for Best Supporting Actress. She was only the second ever African American woman to win that award. And Halle Berry many years later in the early 2000s, she was the first African-American actress to win Best Actress.
Yeah.
It took getting into the 2000s for an African-American actress to win that award.
It's baffling, isn't it?
It is. But anyway, like, she
What a
deserved
performance.
it.
What a performance will he puts in that film.
Yeah, and he petitioned for her to get the role, didn't he, as well? And yeah, it definitely deserved Best Screenplay. Yeah. Beautiful script. Beautiful film.
Do you have any more notes on this?
No. I could talk about this forever.
Sam's going to go off and have a cry
I
now.
will refrain. I was literally... How bad was I watching this with you the last
Bawling
time?
right up.
It took me a moment to compose. Maurice Jarre? Why did everyone have really difficult names? He was the composer for this film. Brilliant job. Whoever, don't know any other films he's done, but yeah, the music for this is gorgeous.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks guys. Like I said, hope you had a nice Valentine's Day. Let us know what are your Valentine's Day films? Like, what do you watch this week?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it might not even have to be romantic films. Like, just let us know.
What do you watch?
Yeah.
What's your go-to?
Right, and we'll see you next week.